Hello, everybody. Good evening. And I said earlier today I probably wasn't going to make any videos today unless something happened. Well, something has happened. Fortunately, though, it didn't happen until I had been home for a while and had had the opportunity to do all the things that I need to do when I get home from a trip. So it worked out fairly well. No complaints there. Still getting to it a little bit late because I had to go take care of dinner, but let's go ahead and talk about it now. And then at the end, we'll talk about the other thing. The other thing that isn't really Seahawks related, but it kind of is, and is going to be way more interesting than this in all likelihood. But the Seattle Seahawks did sign a player today, Steven Sims. Steven Sims, wide receiver and returner. He's been on a few different teams in his career. He's been on 4 different teams, even though he came into the league in 2019. So he's definitely been bouncing around. He's certainly not a very prolific player, but he does have one area of football where he does have a lot of experience and add non-trivial value. So Steven Sims, most recently of the Baltimore Ravens, although he was only there for 2 games at the end of last season, brings in 78 career catches for 700 yards. No season where he went over 310 yards, so that's not really what Steven Sims is about. He has caught passes before, but he's caught a grand total of 3 over the last 2 years combined. So that's not really what you're looking at him for. What you're looking at him for, if anything, is value as a return man. And he does add some stuff there for sure. You can see that over his career, he's done a lot of punt returns, and he's also done a good amount of kick returns as well. He returned a kick for a touchdown in his rookie year back in 2019. He was a recipient of 21 punt returns in 2024. He actually led the league in kick returns, total number of kick returns in 2019. So this is his wheelhouse. Other than really that first season, I would say, and when it comes to kick returns anyway, that first season and the to a certain extent third season, and then I guess a little bit of 2023 success. I don't think he's particularly great at it. And I'll say this, and this is going to be a big thing with us. He is a fumbler. Yeah, Steven Sims. He's got like I think double-digit fumbles on punts in his career. It's close to that. Nemhauser had a tweet a little bit ago where he was talking about Sims, and he said something like he's fumbled 3 times in 3 of his seasons. So he's got like 9 or 10 career punt return fumbles, which can't happen. I don't even need a great punt returner. I just need somebody who's not going to give the ball back to the other team. So, quite honestly, that being the case, I don't know if I love that. However, as a kick returner, apparently he's never had a fumble before. Again, that was I think it was Nemhauser who tweeted that. But regardless, that being if that is true, then that is definitely going to be more appealing. And he's got a good track record as a kick returner as well. He's was arguably the most prolific kick returner in the league in 2019 actually. So, we'll see exactly what happens here. Decent chance he ends up being roster just a guy to hang out on the roster for the off season. But that is what he brings to the table, and I mean we need this. We need a guy who can return kicks and punts. It murdered us last year, the punt returns. I don't know if it cost us games, but if it didn't, it tried to cost us games. It went into overtime trying to cost us games. Okay, so that's the stuff with Steven Sims, and that's really all there is to say about it. It's a perfectly fine signing, but there's no guarantee that he's going to actually end up making a meaningful impact. The more interesting thing that just happened, even if it has really nothing to do with the Seahawks, is that Russell Wilson did find a home. And generally speaking, over the last 2 going on 3 years now, I've only discussed Russell Wilson on this channel in terms of videos when he actually does when a big crossroads is taken, right? I remember that first year he was gone, I was making videos almost every week about what was going on in Denver because we had so much draft capital tied up in what was going on in Denver. But after that, I was like, okay, I don't need to be making a video about him every week because it doesn't really matter that much. But on some level, this is still one of the most important players in franchise history for the Seahawks. This is our greatest, most successful quarterback ever. So there is some value in seeing how he handles the end of his career. As a Seahawks fan, now some people don't really like Russell Wilson, especially not now. But even if you're one of those guys, there's certainly some value in seeing how this ends because he is one of our all-time great players. It's obviously not on the level of a Patriots fan watching how Tom Brady's career ended, but in our own little world, it's a little bit like that. And when he signs with a team, when something actually occurs that moves his place in the NFL, I think it's worth thinking about. But I got to be honest, this one I don't get. So let's think about this for a second here. So the Giants signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal. Apparently it's like up to 21 million, probably going to be less. It's going to be at least 10.5 million. Probably going to be a little bit more, but probably not that much more. I'm assuming there are some pretty significant incentives in there that he won't be super likely to reach. So the money is whatever. Obviously, it's a big, big fall off from where he thought he was going to be. I think there was a time where Wilson thought he was going to get over $100 million deal on like 3 years, or maybe even $150 million on 4 years. But here's the thing. Like, to me, Russell Wilson, obviously he wants to play, right? I guess that's the most important thing to him. He wants to be able to play. He doesn't want to sign a contract with some team and then be a backup. I think that would be something that he wouldn't be cool with. That's something he wouldn't abide by. So that's the one part of this that I do get. He can probably start on the Giants. He's got to beat out Jameis Winston and a potential rookie. He's at least capable of doing that. Doesn't mean that he necessarily will, but I imagine that he will. If I had to guess, he's going to beat out Jameis Winston and at least start the season in New York. But other than that, the Giants are a team that have almost no hope of being any good this year. The Giants have been one of the worst teams in the league over the last 12, 13 seasons. They have, 2 playoff berths and 1 playoff win, and they've been one of the worst teams in the league for a couple seasons in a row now. Outside of a 3-game historic fluke run with Tommy DeVito 2 years ago, they have been maybe the worst team in the league. If not, they're right down there over the last 2 seasons. And I know they haven't had good quarterbacks, and it wouldn't take a lot to be better than the quarterbacks they've had over the last 2 years, but there are very, very deep problems there. They've got a head coach that seems like he's an obvious dead man walking. They've got a GM that seems like an obvious dead man walking. Like, it's hard to imagine those guys surviving the season. They do have some interesting talent on that team. I do think some areas of that team are coming forward, but that is clearly a team that seems very much married to like a 4-win season. How is Russell Wilson going to be happy being... It's like if you ever saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Leonardo DiCaprio character just become the guy who's supposed to show up and lose. Like, that was his crisis as a character, right? He realized he was the guy that people hired to get beat up in their show or movie. And it looks like that's what Russell Wilson is now. He is the guy who signs with the terrible team that doesn't really know what they're doing, that doesn't really have a good roster, that doesn't really have a good staff. So they just bring in a veteran quarterback that is at least competent to hold the ship together in a way that isn't completely embarrassing, so they can just take their 4-13 season or whatever and get out of there and hopefully build around a young quarterback either this year or next year. Like, that's... I don't know. I can't imagine him being all that happy in that situation. You got to have hope, right? And you knew the Steelers weren't a Super Bowl contender last year. That was obvious. But they were a playoff contender. They were at least a pretty good team. And they did end up making the playoffs. when he went to Denver, he obviously had no idea that thing was going to blow up in his face. So it's not like he went to Denver thinking, okay, I'm just going to get paid for a few years because I don't care about going 5-12 and being one of the worst teams in the league. That was something where he was thinking things were going to go a lot better. It's hard to imagine anybody thinking things are going to go better in New York with the Giants. So I never thought Russell Wilson would be a guy who would be cool just going to a team and playing out a season to get his butt whipped, kind of just knowing what's going to happen. This is like something you'd see out of a Vinny Testaverde type quarterback at the end of his career, when all he really wanted to do was be in the league. He didn't care if it was for a bad team. He didn't care if he was going to go out there and get killed every week. He just wanted to keep playing. So that part of it confuses me a little bit. I don't think he needs the money that bad. And also just the fit. I think the fit's a disaster. Daboll, Kafka, that offense with Russell Wilson's skill set is oil and water. I understand that there are a couple of things that Wilson has over a guy like Winston, but I do wonder if Winston might actually be a little bit of a better fit for the Daboll and Kafka offense. I do. I wonder. So, beyond just that, even that's oil and water right there. That relationship between Wilson and Daboll, that's oil and water. That's probably going to be really ugly. So, yeah, I don't really understand this one. I'm kind of disappointed. I would have rather have seen Wilson retire than go to a team like the Giants, where it's hard to imagine anything good happening, especially in that division, by the way. That division, the Giants are a clear last place right now, and no reason to believe that's changed in this offseason. So, yeah, I would have preferred he retire instead of going out there and likely just getting beat up every week. But that's that. See you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming tomorrow.